Hello and welcome to Blitzbeat Today. We help entrepreneurs create purpose-driven businesses through training, traffic, and connection. My name is Monica Krimendahl, and I'm here with my business partner, Rick Hayhurst.
Hi, friends. Thanks for coming.
And today we are so excited. We have Amy Lanci with us today. And Amy Lanci is the owner and the CEO and founded Untold Story Enterprises. And she grew up as a speech delayed child. And Amy always had a desire to be heard and seen as she truly was. And over time, she realized that she had a gift to pull people's stories out and love the written word. So she started her own copywriting business, Untold Story Copywriting, in 2018, and she helped coaches, authors, speakers, and service-based owners nail down their messaging and create content for their websites and their online presence. Untold Story Copywriting officially became Untold Story Enterprises 2 years later. And Amy is both creative and scientifically trained and brings all of that to the table whenever she needs to strategize and think out of the box for her clients. As a speaker and group facilitator, she has presented and opened her heart to people on both coasts of the continental US, and she's loving every minute of it. Thank you so much for being here, Amy.
Oh, thank you. And I should have updated that because now, as of the last couple of weeks, I've been talking to people internationally too. So it's been an interesting and an amazing journey all at once in so many ways. So thank you for that lovely introduction.
Yes, it's so great to have you. So bring us into your world a little bit. Tell us a little bit maybe about how you got into what you're doing and how things evolved for you.
All right. So as my business is called Untold Story, so here is my story. I majored in biology in college, and then I went forth to pursue a career in marine biology. So I was in sea turtle genetics for about 14 years. And about 6 years ago, I started pursuing a part-time side hustle as a health coach because at that point, I'd gone through my health journey and I knew that there was something more to the life I had already created for myself. And so when I started my health coaching business, I was still working full time as a scientist. And the thing is, when they teach you health coaching, they teach you how to coach, they teach you about nutrition, they don't teach you too much about the business aspect. They tried, but it was very diluted. And so for me, as somebody who came from a government, academic, scientific background, no one taught me anything about sales and marketing and operations. Like nobody taught me that whatsoever. So when things were not taking off with my health coaching business, I had to invest my own money into online courses to teach me what it is to run a business online. What does it mean to run a business, period? And what I found when I was learning what marketing was that copywriting came really quickly and really naturally to me because I have been a writer my whole entire life, been on different newspaper staffs and schools, and I wrote for my own personal well-being and creativity. So when it was explained to me, copywriting is essentially writing like you speak. Oh yeah, I totally had that down. And that was the part I enjoyed the most in building my business. Well, the thing is, my business still went nowhere. And I had a different business coach at the time. And she said to me with tears in my eyes, she said, Amy, what do your friends and family ask you for help with? And I said, writing, without even thinking about it. And she said, writing? You've never said anything about writing or that you had a knack for this. And so I said, well, it never came up. But it was at that point she challenged me to switch my business over from health coaching to full-on copywriting. So I switched over my website and my business cards. And about a week later, I got my first 2 paying clients ever. And so it was as if the universe said, go that way. And then over time, I realized that this path of pursuing copywriting and communication in my business has allowed me to see my gifts in a whole new light. And it feels like other parts of me from way back when, because in my bio I mentioned I was a speech delayed kid, that part of me from the past was all of a sudden meeting me in the present. And now we're walking forward into the future. So so that's how I really started with copywriting. And then over time, my clients have just been picking my brain in terms of not just how do we communicate this particular project or offer, but how does this relate back to the rest of the business and the newer offers that are up ahead.
I love that. Amy, I was a bio major as well. And it's so fun to be with people who just have that kind of, like, I call it a brain background, not referring to myself, but referring to you. That's like a good brain background. Yeah. So now, how is copywriting different than storytelling, or is it the same?
I would say that copywriting should include some form of storytelling. And I say that storytelling in general is like this giant umbrella that could be in different forms. It could be, orally spoken. It could be written down. It could just be in a novel, a book. When people ask me, how do I tell my story? Really only you know how to tell your story. And so that to me is storytelling versus when you are copywriting and you are putting together an offer, you want the audience, whoever's reading it, to truly understand what it is that they're reading about and how it really relates to them. And the best way to relate the offer to them is to tell a story. Let's say you come up with rhetorical characters, or sorry, hypothetical characters, or you tell your own personal story. And when you do that well, then you're able to bring the audience in further into the copy because they see they see themselves in your story, even though you have no idea what their story is. But the fact that your story or a story that you choose to tell is included in this landing page, it automatically gets people to be interested, and not just interested, but say, oh, they're talking about me here. I need to keep reading this.
Yeah, that way they can connect with what you're saying. So they connect in and want to keep reading instead of like, oh, this doesn't have anything to do with me. Next.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. They need to know that this product is for them and that this is something that is of value that they really need to pay attention to and enroll in or purchase or try out if there's a trial. So
I love that phrase, see yourself in the product, so that if the customer can see themselves in the product, then of course they're interested and it's relatable. So maybe give me like a really simple, how do I think about it? Like, I'm good at writing stories, but I may not be good at putting you into the product or the service. So can you give me just a minor little shift in my brain for that?
All right, so let's come up with a hypothetical product. Let's say it was, oh, here we go. So let's say you had some kind of weight loss supplement and your target market, because you need to know who you're speaking to, and your target market are moms who want to lose the baby weight. So in that copy, you would mention phrases such as what a mom would say to herself when she's looking at herself in the mirror after she gets out of the shower. Tell the story of this hypothetical mom who's going through this and she's thinking, gosh, I don't know when I'm going to get that baby weight off of me. Or if it was a coach or a consultant who had personally overcome this same issue of losing the baby weight after they had a baby, then the coach can talk about, hey, I know what you're struggling with. It's very hard to not feel self-conscious. And I struggle with that too. Here's my personal story of when I had my daughter. and I gained 20 pounds, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I just couldn't recognize the woman in front of me. And then I really decided at that point that things need to be different, and then somehow I was going to embrace this new me. So that's an example of using storytelling when it comes to an offer. Does that clear things up?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just an interesting, like, I just know that if you say the word copywriting, it lands in my brain one way. But if you say storytelling, it lands in my brain a different way. And
Yeah.
so I feel more free in storytelling, where in copywriting, I feel like there might be some rules that I'm not aware of, and might actually make my storytelling more effective in terms of selling my business.
Hmm. Hmm. It's more about just getting straight to the point, and also utilizing phrases that the audience will most likely be using themselves. So, like I said, if a woman's looking at her image in the mirror and she's unhappy with how she looks, she will talk about, gosh, I look really fat today, or I feel really uncomfortable in my skin, making sure that those pieces of dialogue are included in the story. And that's how the bridges is created, is constructed between copywriting and storytelling. I feel like storytelling, there is more freedom in that arena when you think about storytelling, because storytelling is whatever you want to make of it. And copywriting, it is free when you know how to do it. It's more formulaic. If I you have to know for sure who the audience is, you have to know for sure what the offer is, you have to know for sure what the outcome needs to be, and you need to know for sure what story would be relevant for this audience and what language are they really speaking. So it's formulaic, but here's a good example. Since Rick, you come from a science background like me, so I'm sure you're right. You are familiar with the term standard operating processes, SOPs. So the thing is, you first start out learning the process. Let's say I was doing a DNA extraction. You first look at the SOP as the learning guide to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 as to how to do a DNA extraction. Well, eventually you're gonna understand what everything that's on a SOP after doing a DNA extraction so many times. So then you end up finding your own shortcuts and your own way of doing things when it comes to fulfilling the DNA extraction. And then therefore you come up with a slightly different method than what's on the SOP, but it still gets the same end result. So I kind of relate that to copywriting versus storytelling, where the way that you use storytelling and copywriting, it is formulaic, but once you get the hang of it, you just come up with your own flavor.
Gotcha.
Got it. So when you take that storytelling or the copywriting, and we were talking before, so the audience won't know about this, but what we were talking about before was you have this one piece of content. You want to have one piece of content. You can take that content or that story, excuse me, and repurpose it. So you have the one piece of content, you repurpose it for emails, you repurpose it for your landing page, you can repurpose it for an ad, you can repurpose it in different ways. So when we're thinking about all of that process, is there an SOP in your mind that works for that we could teach business owners?
Well, one easy way to repurpose content is if it's naturally, how do I say this? Naturally bulleted points. So as in 5 things to know about this, 3 things to know about that, 10 things to know about this. Because if you had, let's say you had a blog post that had 10 ways to improve your sleep. Well, you can post that blog onto your website and also share it to social media, share the link to all your different platforms. And then in addition to that, if you wanted to, you could take each of those points, each of those could be its own social media post. You could pair it with its own graphic, And then you automatically have 10 more social media posts to share on all your different platforms. And then you can, if there's a piece in there that relates to the product, let's say the call to action or the story that you might, or some stories you may share in within the 10 points, then you can use some of that in a landing page. Or also, if you do the whole, hey, I have 10 things, that's 10 social media posts, you could also take each of those 10 points and expand it, and that can become its own email. So then you automatically have 10 emails in a series potentially.
Clever.
Gotcha.
Really clever. We love repurposing content and just using it in multiple ways.
Yeah, because I love coming up with ideas, but when you are trying to be present in all these different platforms, there's only so much content you can create at once. So the more you can repurpose, the better, but you also don't want to make it look like you are repurposing. You want to repurpose, but you don't want it to look like you're repurposing. So that's how I break it down, to make it look like it's new, or help the audience to narrow in on certain concepts that need repetition.
Totally. So as we're talking about the different concepts that need repetition, people are going to need to put some of that content and repurpose it into their landing page. So I know at one point you talked a little bit about 5 specific steps to look at when you're creating your landing page. I would love to hear those 5 steps.
Okay, awesome. So I had them written down to make sure that I had them down. So the first part of the landing page, you wanna call out to the audience. And so I call this the hook-in. And so this usually is in the form of a question, such as, are you having trouble sleeping at night? Because this is the question that helps to identify who this is really for, and starts to kind of hint at the problem and the solution. And this could be in the form of 1 question or 3 questions, but whatever you choose to do, it should be something that's catchy and hook people in and say, oh, I struggle with it. That's the problem I have. So that's component number 1, is calling out to your audience with a hook in. Point number 2 is then you want to start sketching out what the problem really is. It's one thing to say, oh, you're having trouble sleeping at night, and then leave it at that. Like, there actually needs to be a build up to talk about the problem in different angles, because it's not enough to just say, hey, I sell sleep supplements, because there's a gazillion sleep supplements out there. It's more about, hey, we understand this problem. We are the experts. Let's just sketch out what's really going on with you. Are you working? Are you staying up at all hours of the night watching infomercials? Are you having a hard time focusing on your work? Are you not present with your children because you're just irritable? Like those, those are just different ways to talk about the different pain points of the problem. And when you do that, you're able to show people that not only do you get what the problem is, but you bring them closer to you. Point number 3 is talk about the solution, which is your offer. Why is this the answer to people's problems? And how is this different from what is already out on the market? And the 4th part is the story. That's your personal story, or the story of the avatar that is in question. And you kind of already do that in the beginning with the calling out to the audience and sketching out the problem and talking about the solution. But it's just, if there's an extra little bit of story you can add in there without it making it rambly or too long, go for that. And then the last part, the 5th part, is the call to action. Purchase this, enroll in this, tell people what is the next step, so that way they know how to move forward with this offer. So those are the 5 pieces or must-haves. coaches and consultants, or just really anyone, should have on their landing page.
Yeah, great, great. Do you, when you're working with clients, do you give them examples of that, or how do you train people in that kind of work?
When I work with clients, typically I'm taking that on for them. But in the past, when I have encountered people who are more in the DIY category, who are not able to hire someone like me right away, but they want their revenue and cash flow to take off more quickly, which understandable. So then that way they could hire people like me in the future. I've definitely had webinars, and I've had classes to teach people these are the different aspects of what you really should include.
Cool, cool, really good. So it sounds like people hire you, and then you just kind of handle it. You take care of everything. Is that right?
Yes, yes. But I do want to say this caveat is that the clients I work with, I prefer it to be a partnership where I am taking this off their plate, but I'm working with them to get feedback and to tweak things and to make sure that this is what they really want, and also what I would personally recommend, as opposed to a client who would prefer that they give everything to me and they never see it ever again. You know, I would prefer, I had definitely learned about myself that I prefer to have clients who will work with me while I just take care of the writing part.
That totally makes sense. You want to be in a partnership, and you want to make sure that they get what they want and you're doing what they want, so that it all works out for everybody, for sure. I have another question for you about business on that note, thinking about clients and thinking about so you're running a business. So as a business owner, what kinds of things could you recommend to business owners? Maybe they're at the beginning of growing their business, or what are like the top things you would say, okay, here's what I would focus on for copywriting. Here's my number 3 or my 3 tips or something for copywriting for a newer business owner.
So when it comes to copywriting for a newer business owner, let's see, I would definitely first go with the fundamentals of who are you really speaking to, because that is a notorious question of who do you really help, who's your avatar. But the thing is, I see a lot of newer business owners try to skip over that step of trying to figure out who they're speaking to, because they just want to launch into it, and they freeze when they hear that question. So they end up trying to do copywriting on their own without answering that question. And then the copywriting doesn't look as good as it could because nobody knows who you're really speaking to. And then once you understand who you are speaking to, who are you committing to speaking to, then it's easier to write the copy for them. So that is definitely number 1 on my list of just making sure you know your audience, because nothing else matters in your copy if you don't have that down. And I've met so many coaches and consultants, and I did this as a health coach way back when. If I could go back in time, this is what I would tell myself. Like, just, it's not that you can't help everyone. Yes, you can help everyone, but you need to be speaking to one kind of person, so that way you can take off and help that person. And then once you take off, then you can incorporate other audiences for other offers, so that and be able to speak to them specifically. Because like I said, here we go. The saying, if you're speaking to everyone, you're really speaking to no one.
Good
Awesome.
idea. Great. Yeah, really good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insights. It was great to have you on Blitzby today and to learn a little bit more about you and your business. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
so
you.
much.
So
Yay.
good.